Hey, Taylor, I really appreciate you making time to be on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive into all the things.
Well, and so let's talk about all the things, because you're one of those people that I think if somebody said to you, what do you do for a living? It would take a beat, because you would say, right, which one of the things should I talk about first? You have a number of careers going on at the same time. And I think most people would look at what you accomplish in those three areas and think each one of those things is significant enough to be a full-time thing. How are you doing three of them at the same time? So can we start there? How?
Yes.
Can we do
I was
that?
like, you sound like my mom. She's always like,
Okay.
so how are you doing this? I'm kidding. But yeah, I've always followed my passion. And I think I've realized as I've gotten older, I have multiple passions. And sometimes I think that it's such a blessing, because I feel like I have a lot of love for so many different entrepreneurial kind of avenues. But at the same time, that then of course will limit how much time you have for each of those things, or kind of spreading yourself thin. But I feel really lucky, yeah, that I've been able to have kind of a multifaceted career, one being in the charitable sector, which I'd say is my biggest heart and soul, and the reason that I really actually am able to pursue so many of the other things that I do. But also have had a pretty long career in the modeling and acting industry, and then as well as now have a fashion brand. So all different, absolutely, but there's actually a lot of crossovers once we kind of break down the layers of each of them.
So walk us through that then. I'd love to understand better the crossover piece of that. So actually, you know what? We probably should talk about distinctly what are each of these things. Let's start with the foundation. Where did it come from? Why are you doing it? What's the passion and purpose behind it? Let's start there. And then maybe let's go, the fashion brand helps to fund the foundation. So maybe let's go there next. Yeah. And then let's say that the modeling career may have possibly had something to do with the fashion brand occurring.
I think you're on the right track here.
Okay, so
you're building the puzzle pieces. I love it.
Okay, let's go in reverse order.
Okay. That's perfect.
Okay.
So if we were to go all the way back, it would be to 17-year-old Taylor. She had her own ups and downs in high school, I think, as any child, and teen does. But I experienced cyberbullying when I was in grade 8, had multiple friends, suffer with different mental health challenges, eating disorders, severe anxiety. And so by the time I hit kind of that grade 11 year, I realized we all are struggling in very similar aspects, yet there's no resources available for us. And so I saw a need for safe spaces for young girls to come together and to connect and really just feel seen and heard. And I was fortunate enough to have a really supportive family at home that provided that space for me, but realized a lot of my peers didn't even have that in their home space. And so if they weren't getting it at home and they weren't getting it at school, where was that environment being built for them to kind of just be their authentic selves and to ask tough questions and to, build community? So that is kind of where the concept of the BeaYOUtiful program started. I had started it originally for, I thought would be teen girls. And then I soon realized, doing more research, that so many of these challenges we were facing as adolescents were starting when we were 7, 8, 9. And so I then kind of shifted the vision and created a program for female and non-binary youth ages 8 to 14. So that really formative year where you're like just figuring out who you are. And, as a young woman, your body's changing and you're going to new schools, whether that's middle school or high school. And so really targeting that age group where big shifts are happening. And how do you provide that space for kids to come together and feel understood and feel valued? And so I trialed that first program at a local elementary school, fell absolutely in love with female empowerment and mentorship and the idea that at 17, I could make a difference in someone's life. I worked with this group of 12 girls and they all walked out so much more confident, aligned with who they were. They built friendships amongst themselves, but they also changed who I was as a woman. I walked out of that program feeling like I had taken away just as much is what I had hoped to give to them. And so there was this like really full circle moment that happened. And to be honest, Mike, I kind of just felt that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So fast forward many years, and we became a not-for-profit society in British Columbia. And then 5 years ago, we became a national charity. So it's really been an amazing journey to see the foundation grow into what it is today, but it wouldn't be without, we have over 400 volunteer mentors on our team across Canada that are showing up to programs, doing the work on the ground, helping inspire. And so it's really become so much more than just like a me project. It's really a very big community of women who are making change.
That's incredible to go from, from a 17-year-old realizing that, hey, there's not really if you don't have it in your family, it's not coming from school. Like, where are young girls getting this type of mentorship and to support to navigate a very, interesting and both a wonderful and challenging time. I've got a daughter turning 13 this year, so I am living this in my house and can relate as a dad. Going from there to a program, having it be so successful that it's changing their lives and yours, and then going that next step forward years later to become a not-for-profit and then become a national foundation. Those are big steps. And so first of all, congratulations on going from that original kernel of a dream at 17 to creating what you've created today, 13 years later. That's incredible. What you've done.
It's been a wild ride, to say the least, but
well, sure
not without its challenges. But it's, I think, again, like I always go back to the word passion, and I know it can sound cheesy and corny, but I'm all about that in life because I think I'm big. My slogan is everything can be a movie moment, and my friends all know that about me. But I do feel like if you were in my head, there's like music playing constantly and everything's like a theatrical performance, but there's these moments in life that are just so pure and they happen all the time. And I think the more that we can ground ourselves in gratitude and just being so present, you can take all these beautiful aspects and like build it to be something that you envision. And so for BeaYOUtiful, that's really what it's become. It's a collection of these moments where I was like, that was life-changing. Let's do it again. And now it's that for so many other people, which is really great. It's not just something that I've started. It's really been the buildup of hundreds and hundreds of women who have backed what it is that we're up to. But like you said, you having a daughter at 13, you know how instrumental it is to have these role models in their lives. And so, yeah, if I can be a small piece of that for a child, that's a huge win.
Well, from one idea to now having over 400 volunteer women across Canada that are helping to support that vision taking place that's a pretty impressive thing that you've built, but also it's a community. You've created a community not only of the young ladies that are going through the program, but of the women that have decided to be a part of BeaYOUtiful Foundation to help to support this work. So enriching their lives as well. Because I know from personal experience, both from chatting with my mentors, but also acting in the capacity of mentor, that role is incredibly enriching. And it's not something that I think a lot of people realize, that when you get to that stage and you're in that mentorship role, you're learning and gaining so much, and your life is enriched so much through the act of giving and the act of mentoring others. When I think a lot of people think of mentorship, they think, oh yeah, that mentor is just giving. And the person receiving that, whether it's a young person or whomever is the mentee, that's actually the recipient. Like they get all the benefit of that relationship. And what my experience has been that no, it's actually an incredible reciprocal exchange that in most cases, the mentors have no idea is going to occur when they say yes. And then when they become part of a community of mentorship, they realize that there's a community that comes along with this as well, which again was not why they maybe signed up in the first place.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you're young, the idea of having a mentor is a bit foreign, maybe. I don't know, for me at least too. I don't know if you can relate to this, but when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, I didn't necessarily think about having a mentor or even really understanding what that concept was. I do feel like the word is talked about a lot more now in schools and in maybe more youth-centered environments, but it's so beneficial. And I often think if I would have had a mentor at that age instead of now at I think my first kind of mentorship experience I can think of where I had a mentor and I was the mentee was maybe like in my early 20s. But to think that I could have had that 10 years earlier is just such an amazing idea and concept. But I don't know, do you feel like you had a mentor when you were that young, or is that also something that
Yeah.
developed like later into your years?
Well, ironically, or not ironically, but tangentially to your experience, I was 30 the first time that
Okay.
I had somebody that I formally said is a mentor. And his name is Walt Sutton. He lives in Bainbridge Island down in the US. And we have been, from that day when we met, when I was, we got to know each other over 3 or 4 months. And then we started meeting for half a day a month for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he retired, and so he said like, hey, can we cut it back a little bit more, down to an hour and a half? And I'm like, absolutely, like I'm getting incredible benefits. Like, me too. So we have been meeting now in total for 22 years. And we still meet for an hour and a half a month. He just actually went into my calendar last night and booked our next conversation. And I haven't done anything significant in life without having a conversation with him. And then I have another mentor that I met in 2008, and we met for breakfast for an hour and a half every month for 5 years. And at the 5 year mark, he said to me, hey, I think we've transitioned this into a friendship now. Can we just like hang out and go to hockey games and stuff, but
I
not
love
be as
that.
formal with this? And so, that's still going on. I ended up mentoring his son. So he actually reached out to me through that process and said, my son is in university, is trying to figure out what his next step in life is. Would you mind spending some time with him? So ironically, my mentor's son became my mentee through that process.
Amazing.
When I look back in my life, though, I would say my father, who, died about 20 years ago, he was absolutely a mentor to me. I didn't have that language, or I didn't have that, not just the language, I didn't even have the understanding. He was just somebody that I admired and looked up to. And there were other strong mentors that were in my life at the time when I was younger. I just didn't have the language. I didn't have the understanding of how important those people were going to end up being. Some of them were family friends. Others were bosses. Like my first boss, when I was still in university, was an incredible mentor to me, a guy by the name of Jeff Owen. And he really set the course of my leadership and who I wanted to become as a young leader coming out of UBC Commerce. And I feel so grateful that I had them. And I think what I love today is that the word mentor, mentee and the concept of it is much more prevalent, so that young people, as you say, it would be great if you could get a mentor when you're like 12 or 8, like early on. And that's your foundation literally is creating that for young girls, right? These mentor-mentee relationships, I'm sure you have incredible stories of how long those friendships and mentorships actually carry on for, well outside of maybe what the foundation's intent was relative to how long that mentor-mentee pair was due to be together. And so I'm so grateful that it's a common conversation for kids today, because not everybody grows up in a family where they have that type of mentorship. As you say, you were lucky to be a young girl growing up and have a strong family to help to support that mentorship. Not everyone has that. And I think there are incredible mentors out there in the world that would happily give up their time and energy if they only knew that people thought of them in that way.
Absolutely. And you actually nailed it right there, because I was going to say that we have so many women that actually come through our door and are like, I don't think I can be a mentor. Like, I don't, what's the qualifications? I don't think, like what, honestly, kind of saying, what can I even offer? And that is instantly when we take that and say, well, this program actually is going to help you probably even determine all the incredible things that you do offer in this world, because by teaching young kids about self-esteem, confidence, self-worth, you innately just start learning those lessons back and rehearsing that kind of those affirmations, right? That we sometimes as adults forget to tell ourselves, but also we try to provide that confidence for people coming through to be like, you already are a mentor. You just don't even maybe know it yet. But I bet you can name 3 people in your life, if you think about it, that look up to you already. And, I think we sometimes underestimate our own capacity to be a mentor, to be that inspiring human. And sometimes it's just because an act of kindness has changed someone's life, or, the way that you provide space for a friend to come in talk openly to you, like that could be a mentorship relationship. And so I think for us too, it's really like redefining what even a mentor is. A mentor to me is largely just someone who provides a safe space and allows that dialogue to really exist. So if I can show a woman who maybe has never thought that she could be that for someone, that's such a beautiful opportunity as well to like showcase her talents. And yeah, so it's just really also acknowledging that we all have these amazing talents and skill sets, and providing a space for people to share those with the world.
I love that. I love that phrase that mentoring is to provide a safe space for another. There's a concept, psychological safety, that we talk a lot about in leadership development, right? And having a psychologically safe place where I can be vulnerable and authentic, a place where you can break through the existential crisis. So the existential crisis sounds like this. It's like, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. And psychological safety and vulnerability and authenticity is if I feel like I'm in a place where I can tell you who I really am. I can tell you what's really going on for me. And I know that you're not going to harm me with that information. And the beauty of what occurs in a conversation from that place is exactly what mentorship is designed to do. Where I think, as you say, people sometimes think, well, what do I have to give? Like and they'll usually say, I'm only this age, or I've only done this, or I'm only this role in life, whatever they think their main role is, right? So like, what would I have to offer to someone? And I think we forget what it's like to be a young person, or to be younger in general. It doesn't matter what stage of life we're at. And that our wisdom and experience has got us to this certain point. But those who have traveled the road longer than we have, and I would say for most of those pairings, usually it's great to have about a 15-year gap when you're talking about career. But if we're not talking about career and it's mentorship of young people, then really your lived experience, good, bad, and ugly, another person's listening to your stories, which you just think of as like stories you may be told 100 times, but there's a lesson that they pull out of that may be the thing they needed to hear at that point. And there's nobody in their life that is there for them to provide that, just a shared story. You don't even have to have the lesson ready. That's their job to take it in and decide what they want to do about it. And I love your invitation to anyone who's hasn't thought of themselves as a mentor is, could you create a safe space to be in conversation for another person, show up authentically as you are, and then just see where that conversation goes.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, every single woman has once been a young girl. So there's just that relatability piece that automatically comes with, showing up in that space. And we always say, channel what you needed at 10 years old. And that's
beautiful.
So
channel what you needed at 10 years old. And I think anyone can put themselves in that place and remember what it was like to be 10 years old, to be, what's 10 years old is like, is that grade 5?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe even grade 4. Yeah.
Grade 4. Right. Yeah. So to imagine what it was like to be in grade 4, grade 5, and trying to navigate through life. And I think, as you brought up cyberbullying and the fact that you had to experience that, unfortunately, when you were a young girl. And the reality is today that, I think it's far worse today, or there's more opportunities because of the platforms have expanded so much, and there's disappearing messages, and, people hide behind social media. And the bullying now is not something that's getting seen. Cyberbullying is something that's it's hidden, right? If you see somebody bullying somebody on the playground, the way I would have experienced it when I was a kid, it's super obvious. Everybody can see it's happening. Teachers can step in, no big deal, right? Parents can be involved. Today, these things, from cyberbullying experience, it's insidious. And we've seen it with our own daughter, and this ability to post these terrible things and then hide, or in some cases not even hide, but expect that there's no consequences to that. And so for girls to have to navigate that when they're building their own self-confidence, their own sense of self, and they're learning how they want to be in the world, when they've got this cyberbullying going on that's kind of knocking them down, like to not have someone to go to. And sometimes maybe they don't feel comfortable going to their parents, right? And for whatever reason, whatever the relationship is, but to have someone to go to talk that through with at that formative period of life is incredible.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's hard to navigate where to even find resources, I think, at that age of how do I deal with this cyberbully? Or like you said, if I can't tell mom or dad, is there even someone at the school, like a school counselor I can talk to? But if we've kind of exhausted all those resources and they're not available, and even if they are, but it's the comfortability, it's the relatability, it's bringing in that female, again, that older kind of mentor presence that is like a removed party from being like knowing the day to day. I think it makes a huge difference. You know, what I say to your daughter, for example, is naturally just going to land differently than if you were to say the exact same thing. And it's not to say that one is more powerful or more right or wrong. It's just the way that we as humans kind of like communicate. And so it's very interesting to see those relationships unfold within the foundation and see that there is such a strength and a power to like that mentor-mentee bond. Yeah, and we have some pretty amazing and remarkable stories that have come out of the organization. So I'm very passionate about continuing to grow what we're up to, and then and how can we just kind of further that impact?
Well, the world needs what you're up to, and so I'm grateful that you are still 13 years later so passionate about the work that you do at the foundation and continue to grow it across Canada. With all of that going on, then you're like, I should start a fashion brand.
Yeah.
On the
Yes.
side,
Okay,
like, because I have free time. So
yes. Yeah. Well, there's a good link to this. So we'll segue now into the brand. So enter, let's say, we're 4 to 5 years into the charity now. And sorry, I should say 4 to 5 years into the organization, because at that point it still wasn't a charity yet. But I was kind of in the middle of finishing university. I was running definitely short on time on how to figure out funding for the amount of programs that were being requested. There was an influx of, we need this program at this school, and where my child is struggling here. So can you bring the BeaYOUtiful program to this city? And so it was great. We were gaining this momentum and at the same time not having enough funding to put on these programs. And so, back then I kid you not, we were doing bake sales. We were doing car washes. At one point we were popping up at like these local small community events and literally just trying to advocate for what we were doing and raise money on the spot. And I started going door to door to small businesses, asking for donations. And I realized that this is exhausting. And beyond that, not maybe the most effective with my time, because as much as it was great to be out in the community and meeting people, we just weren't seeing the dollars raised that were needed. And so I thought there has to be an easier way. And so a little backstory into this is I actually did most of my university degree online. When I was 18, I had the opportunity to move to Asia for a modeling contract and fell absolutely in love with travel, fell absolutely in love with living in Southeast Asia, continued to do my studies online. So that was kind of the commitment that I made myself, is if I was going to go and work overseas, I at least was also going to get a degree at the same time. This was all while also running BeaYOUtiful. So every couple of months when I would come home for X amount of months again, we'd run more programs. But by then we had built up a team. So programs were running now even without me being in the city, and I was doing more of the funding and the back end side. But while I was working over in Asia, had started meeting just connections and people in the fashion industry, started realizing that as much as I didn't mind being in front of the camera, I also had an interest in being behind the camera, in the sense of actually the branding and the creative aspect of it all. And so when I was living in Singapore at the time, had met someone who, owned a family factory. And I thought to myself, what a cool concept. Instead of going home this summer and running 40 bake sales, what if I came out with like a t-shirt collection and I sold shirts? And, I was going to school for communications. I was in the fashion industry working part-time. I was like, it all kind of makes sense. Sure, why not? And so ended up designing a t-shirt, worked with all I had met in Singapore to come up with the concept and the cut and the fit and the shape. And I will call it a bit of luck, in the sense of I landed really well with a style of a shirt that was very body positive. So I came up with this idea that if I wore the shirt and it represented self-love and self-worth, I wanted my mom to be able to wear it. I wanted my aunt to be able to wear it. I wanted my grandma to be able to wear it. And so if that was the case, I knew that it had to be a style that fit a big demographic of people and also made them feel confident, which meant fabric was really important. And longevity of that item was important because, I don't love fast fashion, and I really believe in good quality. And I want to make sure that if I'm buying this shirt for my mom to wear, that she's going to appreciate it and be able to wear it over multiple years. It's not just going to be like a one-time thing. And so came out with this product, launched it when I was back in Vancouver for the summer, and kind of built a mini, this is back in the day, so let's say influencer campaign, but not even.
Yeah.
It was like a bunch of my friends who kind of had a social following that I looped into doing this. And I was like, come participate in this confidence photo shoot, and we're going to all raise money for BeaYOUtiful. And, being my friends, they were so behind the mission and the why. And we launched that first shirt. I built my first website on like Wix or one of the like Squarespace maybe.
Yeah.
And we sold out. And people loved the shirt. They
Yeah.
loved the fabric. They loved the way it fit. My friends were wearing it. My younger cousins were wearing it. My aunts were wearing it. Like, it just was something that kind of landed well. And the special part about the shirt is we had like a little empowering quote written over the shoulder. So it was like where a tattoo would be. It was really subtle, but it was inspired by something a young girl had once told me. And so that kind of became the staple of our brand, was empowering quotes in subtle places on clothes that make you feel confident. And we sold out of that first kind of collection, and then we had a wait list, and people were like, okay, so like when's the next product coming out? I was like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe, yeah, in like a couple of months, it's in the works. And so, to be honest, I just rolled with it and was like, yeah, we're gonna launch another series, and we kind of just I kept building out the brand. And then eventually I was like, maybe I should be in stores. Like, maybe I shouldn't just be online. And so walked down Robson Street, just moseyed into a boutique that I really liked, and somehow convinced the owner that she should sell my brand. And honestly, I think I just really leaned into my storytelling of the why, the fact that proceeds were going back to something that I for so long have believed in and wanted to see grow, and then also believed now so deeply in this product because I had like living walking proof that it was something that people felt good wearing and wanted to invest in and had a social tie to give back, to it. I kind of just looked at checking all the boxes off. And so that's honestly how the brand started. And every kind of season we just would add like a new product in. And so now we are a mix of like wholesale as well as like direct to consumer. We have anything from women's loungewear to we just did a whole linen line recently. We have dresses, cardigans, sweaters, but it's really evolved into kind of an entirely owned company of its own. 10% still goes back to the foundation even today. So there's still forever going to be that social give back attached to it. But the brand definitely has evolved over the years. I mean, I think I'm seeing even a big transition happen now because as the charity has really grown in the last 5 years, obviously my capacity has shifted to more of the foundation, because that's just rightfully so where I think my attention deserves to be. And so I've found it hard, even as the years have gone on, to play with what is the brand today, and do I pass it on to someone who can invest way more time and efforts and resources into it? But I still feel very pulled to it because it helps fund the programs that we run. And I still have quite a big following backing, the items that we produce. And so, got my hands in both at the moment. Who knows? Ask me in 10 years and we'll see where everything evolves. But it's been a really cool opportunity to see how two things can live simultaneously, and be their own identities, but yet so interconnected.
And while you have all of that going on, you also have a successful modeling career, and you're traveling around the world. I mean, we're on Instagram together, and I'm like, there's Taylor with another fashion brand.
Yeah.
Where are you? You're in Singapore. I'm pretty sure you're in Southeast Asia. That looks like Thailand. So you're all over the map. It feels like literally all over the map, with that career. And so, walk us through that. So how does that work in the context of the foundation and the fashion brand? And so like, what is that career for you right now?
So that career is still a large part of my life, actually. I feel really blessed to say that. I started modeling when I was 17, turning 18 just about. And I was always told, by the time you're 25, your career's over. And so that was always my thought in my head was, this is going to be a short-term career. It's going to be something that's going to help me pay for university, that's going to maybe help me travel more. But I never thought it would be any bigger role than that. But what I soon realized is it's given me the opportunity to, yes, see the world, but also meet so many incredible people. I've worked with some of the most incredible brands out there with amazing founders and creative visionaries. And I feel really fortunate that I'm able to still participate in so much of that fashion world. But, I traveled in Asia for 5 years and modeled on and off while finishing school and running the brand and running the foundation. I think the way that I'm able to manage it at the moment is I am still currently based in Vancouver, which is where, we have chapters with BeaYOUtiful all over Canada now. We've got staff helping manage all of those different kind of chapters physically. But I am the one largely on the computer 12 hours a day, writing the grants, landing the partnerships, doing the strategy calls, doing the marketing strategies. So I think for me, I'm fortunate that I'm able to actually do so much of my role from anywhere in the world. What I will say with that is that I have to be flexible with also my time zones. So when I was living in Asia last year for a couple of months, I was taking calls at 4 a.m. on the regular. I was basically working I did a split shift, I'd say. I was up at 4 taking calls 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then I'd take the break when everyone in Canada went to bed. And then I'd be back on my computer at 8 p.m. and then basically clock in until about 1:30, 2 a.m. So my sleeping schedule was all wonky. I still, to this day, even in Vancouver, I work 7 days a week. I don't have much of a balance, but it's because I feel like all my jobs are my hobbies.
Right.
And when people ask me oh, what do you do in your spare time? If I'm not with my family or I'm not with my friends, I'm largely what people think is work. But if I'm on set for shooting for a brand that day, to me, that's such a passion. If the next day I'm then out teaching a confidence program for 8 hours and then I'm writing a grant after, that kind of feels like a passion. Maybe not the grant writing part.
Yeah.
But the
I was going
mentorship.
to ask you about that. We've done a lot of grants in our business.
That's actually my least favorite part of my job.
I
But
get that.
I have to sprinkle in that it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it definitely is I love to work. And I'm fortunate that my partner does too. And we both can largely work from the same time zones or you make it work. But we also both really allow each other to think big and dream big and chase our goals. And he's gone right now for 3 weeks to Asia himself for work. And you just have to honor each other's journeys. And I think we do a really good job of understanding we've got some big things on our bucket list. And so if we can help each other and elevate each other to strive towards it, that's great. But it also just means putting your head down a lot and getting the work done. So I don't have a lot of time off. I don't sleep a lot, but that works for me. And I always say that to people. That is definitely not something I'm recommending for everyone and anyone. But I think if you really love the things that you're up to, you'll make time for them. And I've always said that about anything that I do. If there is at any point where I'm not feeling aligned anymore to something, even if it's generating income, then that's not going to serve me in other ways. I'd rather release it and refocus and spend my energy on things that do feel really in alignment. And so at the moment, it is running the brand, it is running the foundation, and it is getting to model when I book jobs here and there. And largely those brands actually have become some of our biggest donors now and supporters. So that is, I'd say, the third intertwine is I have to tell you, Mike, I actually used to never tell people. Even saying it out loud actually right now feels strange still.
What feels strange about what?
I think because growing up, when people first heard that I was getting into the industry, they assumed that if I modeled, I wasn't smart. If they saw that I was on the face of a campaign, they thought I had nothing more to offer than that. And I didn't want to be known as that. I didn't want to be just, oh, she's the girl that likes to take photos or has the face on a billboard. I wanted my self-worth to be defined by, no, she's got brains and the list. But then I realized that also is a narrative that I need to work on changing. I want to make sure that people aren't so quick to judge someone just by the title of
Mm-hmm.
their career. No matter if I was just modeling, why does that give anyone the right to have that opinion about
Mm-hmm.
me? And so I started to change my own narrative and talk about it more, and realize that I didn't have anything to hide. I could be all these things and be proud of it and have a story, attached to what felt genuine to me. But now I've realized, the more that I've gotten into the modeling industry, and it's funny, I work now more than I ever have as like an older model. The industry is changing in a good sense. They actually are really wanting, they're calling them mature models now, but a more mature look, feel, whatever you call it. They want some wrinkles.
No woman came up with that term. I guarantee
No,
you.
no. It's
That's
like
terrible.
the
Mature. You're 30.
I know, but even to them, like that, that was never considered even possible, like when I was younger. So
Well, it's
it's
wonderful that it's shifted in that way for
totally,
you.
totally. It's just the
I mean,
lingo is funny around it, but yeah.
well, it's like, yeah, there's so many of these lingos were not all of it not developed by a woman, for sure.
No, definitely
My
not.
curiosity is like, so let's talk about that narrative. Like, if you were able to teleport back, like you'd get in your hot tub time machine and jump back and talk to your 17-year-old self, like, what would the narrative be? What would the narrative you'd want to implant in 17-year-old Taylor around your modeling career with the wisdom that you have right now?
I think I would tell her to really just lean into all the things that make her so different. When I first started in the industry, it felt like I had to kind of look like everyone else and be like everyone else and fit into this box that was like predefined for, this is what the fashion industry is. And I'm lucky that I feel like I'm actually a part of the generation that has grown with the change out and evolved out of that box. I just wish I would have known earlier that I didn't have to try so hard to kind of fit into what I thought was expected of me. And now I've been able to see that progression happen of, like, I literally worked with a model a couple weeks ago and she was in her 60s, and we shot this clothing campaign together, and it was so awesome because that would have never crossed my mind at 17, that would be something I'd be doing when I'm 30, and tag teaming it with this incredible other woman who was in just glowing, like truly glowing in her all natural raw state. And it was so incredible to like be in that space with her and to, again, like almost in a way be mentored by her on set. But it's been great to see the industry changing. I think we still have a long way to go. But what I will say is a lot of these brands are actually now more taking an advocacy approach as well, looking for social impact, looking to be more than just a brand. And I think that alignment is then so timely with BeaYOUtiful, because often when you are on set for 8 hours a day working with this creative team and these photographers, a lot of them do ask, because they know in Vancouver, it's not a huge fashion hub. Maybe this isn't your full-time job. They'll say, so do you model full-time or do you have other things going on? Like, tell us about yourself. And of course, like, I'll speak to BeaYOUtiful and what I'm up to. And more often than not, there's at least one person in the room who's like, okay, I've got a daughter that I need to enroll, or the brand's looking for something to support. What a cool opportunity. Like, how could we somehow tag team that we're getting kids, more and more of these programs. So I've leaned into the idea that like there's open doors everywhere. And one of my mentors told me once that I was knocking too hard on doors that weren't open for me. And she said, just turn around. The one behind you is already wide open the whole time. And I had this like epiphany moment of, maybe you just need to sometimes take a step back and like reevaluate the directions you're going and what you're actually asking for and looking for and seeking. And ever since being told that, I've been able just to not take a closed door so personally and kind of reshift the perspective and find open doors in other ways. But I do that now kind of in every aspect of my life. And I'm not to say I walk into a room and I'm seeking a partnership or I'm seeking anything, but I think I just come with a very much curiosity of what other people are up to. And if I can show up with that, I'm more than likely able to find something that we align on and that we can have a deep conversation on. And then things naturally can grow from there, whether it's a friendship or a business relationship or just, it was nice to meet you and I hope we work with you again kind of thing.
I love
That
that. I
makes
love
sense.
the
I don't know. I kind of went on a
Oh my,
tangent there.
it's no, it's not a tangent. It's beautiful. Like I love that that mentor said to you, "Hey, you're knocking on doors that aren't open, that aren't going to open for you. Just turn around. There are other doors that do want to open for you." So I think it gives license, because I think one of the challenges that I see young people facing is rejection, is this thought of like, well, if I'm being rejected, it means something about me. It means something about my idea. It means something about the thing I've decided to pursue. And the reality is that maybe you're just knocking on the wrong doors, and actually it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the fit for someone else, which we have no control over. And instead to be able to say, well, what doors do want to open for me, and then go through those doors and go searching for those doors instead. And I think that's a beautiful thing to hear as early as possible in life. Taylor, thank you for being here. This has been incredible. I really appreciate you taking the time to share the journey that you've been on, which is incredible and inspiring at the same time. And I love that you kind of counterbalanced it with sharing the reality of, and this is what it takes to do this. This is the hours I put in. This is the time and energy put in. These are choices I'm making consciously. And I love this, and it's purposeful, and it's adding energy to my life. And so I'm going to continue to do it. And maybe it's not for anyone else. This is the path I've chosen. And it's quite a wild ride that you've been on so far. And I'm looking forward to continuing to be, I was going to say a silent champion, but I'm not silent about it. So a champion of yours, you continue to explore all three of the things. And those are just the three things you're doing right now. So thank you so much for making the time today.
I appreciate it. I look forward to all the incredible things you're up to as well. So thank you for having me.